Today is Tuesday, October 6, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Joe Biden blasts Donald Trump, his response to COVID-19 at his Florida town hall last night, and he gives an impeccable speech today in Gettysburg laying out a real agenda as we move forward. Plus, tomorrow's the vice president debate between Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris. Reverend William Barber is here to talk about all the ways Republicans are trying to suppress your vote. A recent poll shows that black people are fired up and ready to get Trump out of office. In November, we'll break that poll down. Plus, the Supreme Court has reinstated South Carolina's witness requirements for absentee ballots, yet another effort to suppress the vote. And a win in the Confederate monuments case, a judge has rejected a police officer's bid in Virginia to take down power from a black prosecutor. In Texas, the officer who shot Jonathan Price has been charged with murder. We'll give you those details. And in Rochester, the mayor of that city has been indicted on felony campaign charges, and the judge has said, if convicted, I will throw you in jail. Folks, it is a jam-packed show. In addition to that, I'll be participating in a Get Out the Vote effort led by Jermaine Dupree, and the mayor of Birmingham, Randall Woodfin, will go live during our show to that effort. And plus, in our Black Business segment, you'll meet a black jewelry maker. Oh, yeah. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time, and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, folks, it has been an absolutely busy day in politics. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, he, of course, has been on the campaign trail last night in Florida, today in Pennsylvania. Biden had campaign stops in Miami and a town hall hosted by NBC News anchor Lester Holt. Biden explains why it is important for the president to take some responsibility for the current state of our nation during this pandemic. He also gave his reaction to Trump taking his mask off after returning to the White House from Walter Reed Hospital.
I would call all the governors to the White House. Some probably wouldn't come. And I'd call the governors and I'd say to the mayors as well as the county executives, take responsibility. Take responsibility and lay out the guidelines. Look, folks, one of the problems is this president said, I take no responsibility. Literally, it's not my responsibility. Well, if it's not his responsibility, he talked about this being like a time of war. We are under attack. As I said earlier, 200,000 plus have died. 50,000 a day are getting the virus. 1,000 a day thereabouts are dying. This is a national emergency. And so the president should take responsibility, and the federal government has an obligation to lay out basic guidelines, and the science matters. Listen to the scientists.
Boy, that's kind of basic. The Biden campaign today also dropped 2 ads.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
What it means for history to have a black woman vice president is crazy, right?
I'll say this. The day that Kamala Harris was picked, my wife came to me and she was like, this means something.
When you pick Kamala, she gets it. She elevates the perspective of the woman of color.
She is smart, qualified, and capable.
She can go toe-to-toe with anybody. Harris, who for me is just the embodiment of someone like my mother who could do anything. Yeah.
We know that when black women are lifted up, they lift everybody else up.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
This election is about building this country back better. And that's what Joe and I will do. We'll create millions of jobs, bring back critical supply chains so the future is made in America, build on the Affordable Care Act, offer caregivers the dignity, the respect, and the pay they deserve. We have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
Folks, and again, today in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Joe Biden gave arguably his strongest speech on the campaign trail. Listen to this.
And this nation needed healing. And Doc Rivers, the basketball coach, choking back tears when he said, "We're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We've been hung. It's amazing why we keep loving this country, and this country does not love us back." I think about that. I think about what it takes for a black person to love America. That is a deep love for this country that has for far too long never been recognized.
All right, folks. Also, in that particular speech, there were a number of issues that he talked about. But not only that, Biden also has been focused on the issue of climate change. That has been a huge issue that, frankly, Trump has not spent lots of time on. Here's another climate change ad they dropped.
Farmer. We're having more challenges in tar cherries than ever before. As I think about my grandchildren and the world we live in, I think it's very important to adopt measures to mitigate climate change. I'm John King. I'm from Central Lake, Michigan, and I'm a fruit farmer. For many years, Michigan has been a great location for growing fruit.
We're really proud to be cherry farmers. If we are unable to do that based on the climate, it would really strip away what is so unique about this area.
I've found the same passion that my dad has for growing plants, and I really hope that my son finds the same passion.
How's it taste, Lincoln?
Good. I feel very strongly that we need to take action now on climate change. We need leadership to address the problems we're facing every day so that we can continue to produce food for Americans in the whole world.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
So what you are seeing, obviously this extremely targeted effort on the part of the campaign. And you're seeing, of course, when we talk about that particular speech that took place today in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, showing the contrast between the two individuals, between, of course, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. When you talk about, again, the whole issue of partisanship, when you talk about what's happening with COVID-19, joining us right now is Alan Williams. He's a strategic advisor for the Joe Biden campaign. Alan?
Hey, how you doing? It's great to be on with you, Roland, on Roland Martin Unfiltered, to talk about what you just talked about. What you laid out was Vice President Biden's very, very strong speech and really charge to America at a very historical location at a very historical time.
Obviously, you talked about white extremists in that particular speech as well, which, of course, the FBI director has talked about. Let me play that, and I'm going to come back and chat with you about that.
Okay.
Listen, it's not the worst. I'll be a president who pushes toward the future, not one who clings to the past. I'm ready to fight for you and for our nation every day, without exception, without reservation, and with a full and devoted heart. We cannot and will not allow extremists and white supremacists to overturn the America of Lincoln and Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, to overturn the America that has welcomed immigrants from distant shores, to overturn the America that has been a haven and a home for everyone, no matter their background. From Seneca Falls to Selma to Stonewall, we're at our best when the promised America is available to all. We cannot and we will not allow violence in the street to threaten the people of this nation. We cannot and will not walk away from our obligation to, at long last, face the reckoning on race and racial justice in this country. We cannot and will not continue to be struck in the partisan politics that lets us, this virus, thrive while the public health of this nation suffers. We cannot and will not accept an economic equation that only favors those who've already got it made. Everybody deserves a shot at prosperity.
Alan, how, though, can he make a direct connection with black men? We're seeing in battleground states right now, Donald Trump is polling at 15 to 20% among African American men. And so, what must that message be to specifically be to black men for them to support Joe Biden?
Well, I think it's the totality of the entire ticket. Obviously, the work that Vice President Biden has done over his career it speaks for itself. And I leverage the words of our good friend and Majority Whip Congressman Clyburn when he said back in South Carolina back in February, he said, "Look, in March, he said we know Joe, but most of all, Joe knows us." And look, his pick of Kamala Harris as vice president, it says it all. When we look at the ad that you just ran earlier, where it talked about when a black woman is lifted up, she lifts up the entire community. That goes all the way back to days gone by when she had to work and do the things that she had to do, not only for other families, but for her family. And now fast forward to what we saw today with Michelle Obama gave a closing argument, if you will, of herself on why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris should be the leadership that we use and go forward with for the next 4 years versus going backwards over the past 4 years with the lack of leadership that we've had.
But here's the issue, Alan. And look, I totally agree with that. But here's the point that a couple of things that's missing. One, they need black men making the argument as well in a high-profile way. That's one. Two, what they also have to do is speak specifically to issues. Because here's what I have been hearing from brothers all across the country. Remember, there was a 9-point gap between black men and black women for Obama-Romney in 2012. It went up to 13 points between black men and black women with Trump and Hillary Clinton. It could be 20 points. Republicans, they're banking on that. Lynn Patton put out this video where she's like, "Hey, look, they are laser like." I watched on Sunday. There were ads during NFL games where Jack Brewer, former NFL player, was running during multiple times during every single NFL game. And so, again, how are they making the specific argument based upon issues? Not Joe knows us, but this is what Joe is going to do if he's elected. How does that appeal to black men?
Well, I think what we have to realize is that, one, when you look at individuals like Chris Paul, for example, who is in his home state, in the battleground state of North Carolina, who talks about the work that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will do by raising the minimum wage to $15. When we talk about increasing black home ownership, when we talk about reforming the criminal justice system, when Joe Biden went and met with the family of George Floyd, he just didn't do that to pander or cater to the times. He sat down, as we know Vice President Biden has done over his career. He sat down with young Gianna Floyd and said, we're going to do something about what happened to your dad. And when she leaned in and told the vice president that my dad changed the world, that stuck with him. And I can tell you that we've been on countless calls with not only the vice president and Senator Harris, but the entire team. And we hearken those words from Gianna when we say, you know what, we're going to do better. We're going to build this country back better. Not only are we suffering through a pandemic of a health crisis, but we're suffering through a pandemic of lack of leadership over these past 4 years. And so it's incumbent upon us as black men to make sure that we get out and tell our brothers, we can't do it like we normally would do all the time in the barbershops, at church, after church, during football games, high school and college. But we have to get on the phone. We have to get out, share our message that we are supporting Joe Biden, not because we disagree with Donald Trump. We're supporting Joe Biden because he's going to help our country move forward. He's going to bring back that coalition that we saw in 2008 all the way to 2016 when he was the right hand to Barack Obama. And so I believe that we have a chance with our vote to choose the direction of our country. If we don't vote, then we give Donald Trump another shot. And so we have to get out there and encourage our brothers. That is so critically important to vote and vote for Biden-Harris. And that's what I'm doing each and every day. We saw today in Florida that we had a breakdown in our voter registration system. We saw leaders, we saw black men rally around that. And now they extended the voter registration for another day up until 7 p.m. tonight. And so tomorrow night, we're going to see Senator, soon-to-be Vice President Harris, Senator Harris, reinforce that argument. And she's going to talk directly to the American people about the Biden-Harris vision for a better country. And I believe that she's going to talk about how they got plans to attack the COVID-19 crisis, to make our economy stronger and better, but also to bring our country back together. Just like Vice President Biden talked about in Gettysburg today, we are better than this. We are better than this.
Here's what I would suggest. One, and I have been saying this since last year, Joe Biden and or Senator Kamala Harris needs to do a black male specific town hall, Zoom, or whatever, targeting these brothers, speaking to the issues. There are brothers out there who have believed the disinformation about her record when she was Attorney General and District Attorney. There are people who are raising questions saying that when it came to Joe Biden and the crime bill. And so again, I totally understand surrogates. I totally understand the shop talk they're having on Thursday, but there needs to be a tailored, aggressive effort speaking to these black men. Look, there were 90,000 people who left the top of the ticket unmarked in Michigan in 2016. That could have been the difference between Trump winning the state and Hillary Clinton winning the state. And so I'm simply talking about, look, bottom line is, this is where you leave no doubt. The Republicans, we see what Donald Trump is trying to do, how they want to steal the election. My deal is you got to maximize it as much as possible. And I see what they're doing, targeting black women. Totally get it. What I'm saying is, look, don't even let up for a second on the other side. I've talked to black pollsters. I've talked to black campaign folks, people with political action committees, and there are many others who are sounding that alarm. And what I'm saying is the campaign needs to be more aggressive in tailoring a message. And look, I've run the shop talk ad, and that's fine, but every black man doesn't sit in a barbershop. And I'm saying there has to be engagement on a consistent basis, and it has to, they must hear from Joe Biden specifically and Kamala Harris specifically on this very point. That's all I'm saying, a message that needs to be taken back to the campaign. As a brother who streams this show, I'm looking here on comments on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. I know what emails I'm getting. So I'm getting a 360-degree view of what's happening out here when it comes to black folks in this campaign, but specifically brothers.
Well, Roland, I will tell you that your voice, your platform is tremendous, and the ability to come on here tonight and share with you why we believe the direction that the Biden-Harris campaign will take our country is so important. We believe, obviously, that Senator Kamala Harris is going to do a phenomenal job tomorrow night in Salt Lake City as she goes up against Vice President Pence. But I think we have to really dive into it. And I think you're absolutely right if you talk about engaging men of color.
No, not men of color. Black men.
Okay, black men. Men like me.
You black. We ain't men of color. We black.
We're black men. And I would say that what Senator Harris and what Vice President Biden has done and will continue to do is show the stark differences between our direction for the country, which is a direction for black men, and a direction for the country under the current leadership. And we believe, and I think you're right. I mean, there are times where we can do a stronger case, and we will do that. And I think a lot of times for black men, we have to dive into this in a way that we haven't with other segments of our community. But I will tell you that I think the fact that they're going to create good paying jobs, that you're talking about putting over $5 billion into lending for black businesses, for those individuals who have their small business that's being just ripped apart by this coronavirus and the lack of leadership that we have from the White House. We have an opportunity to build on the Affordable Care Act and make sure that all of our families have health care, right? And so there's so many different issues that we can really touch on, but I will tell you the most important argument I think that we can make is that as black men, we have to understand that the direction of our country is at stake. It's at stake, Roland. And
I agree.
when you
I
think
agree.
about
That's why I'm
where
so passionate about this. And I'm like, yo, this is real.
and look, the other side has shown that they have blatant disregard for our community, and no amount of platitudes, no amount of folks at the RNC convention that wanted to talk about how black they are. You had to go and find like 3 or 4 people, and that was it. Our tent, the Biden-Harris campaign, is built on and built around not only women, but also men of color, black men who are in key strategic positions that are helping the vice president articulate what we feel as black men each and every day.
I got to ask you this here.
And I'll tell you, for me, on this day 2 years ago, I lost my dad to pancreatic cancer. And I will tell you that I understand the impact that poor health care has on our community. And that's why I know that a Biden-Harris ticket and a Biden-Harris administration will ensure that we have better health care for our men, better jobs for our black men, better opportunities for our black men than what we have currently under this current administration.
I gotta ask you this here. And I gotta ask you about this tweet that Uncle Luke Luther Campbell sent out. You're there in Florida. You used to be in the Florida legislature. Luther said, "Let me tell you this, Senator Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, you will not win Florida if you don't bring me, Plies, Rick Ross, Trina the Rockstar, City Girls, Pitbull, Lil Duval to the table. We rep the streets of Florida." And then, of course, he said, if Joe Biden has to call Lil Duval, Trick Daddy, Rick Ross, Plies, Pitbull, Trina City Girls, they will lose Florida. Now, Biden was just in Florida on yesterday. What is the black focus there? I go back to 2018. When I look at, even with Andrew Gillum, Miami-Dade, only 57% turnout of available voters. When you look at that chart that showed the top counties, Broward and Miami-Dade County were in the bottom numbers in terms of turnout. And so how aggressive is the Biden-Harris campaign on driving the black vote in Florida? We see his numbers. He's below Hillary Clinton's numbers with Latinos. Trump is appealing to Cubans and Venezuelans. But what about the black vote? African Americans, Haitians, Bahamians, and others there in Florida.
Well, I would tell you that we are leaving no stone unturned. We are engaging every aspect of the African diaspora as it relates to the state of Florida and really throughout the country. We are not allowing what we saw happen either in 2018 or in 2016 to repeat itself. We are engaging in every way possible, and we're showing the stark contrast between our vision, the Biden-Harris administration's vision, and what we currently see in the White House. And I believe that African American men, men of faith, will stand up and say, you know what, we can't sit on the sidelines. It's football season right now, and we understand about sitting on the sidelines. We got to get in the game. And so we're doing all we can to make sure we get folks in the game. We appreciate, supporters like Luther Campbell, who is a big advocate in his community. We love the work that he does down there to make sure that folks understand the issues that are impacting the community of South Florida, and really the entire state, and all the other celebrities and surrogates. But it's not just about celebrities. It's about that guy who goes home every day from working 2 jobs to make sure that his daughter can make it through college. It's that mother who's working 3 jobs to make sure that her son and her daughter have a chance better than they had. And we know that under a Biden-Harris administration, that load gets a little bit lighter, but the work still goes forward. And so we continue to listen to the voice of John Lewis that says the most powerful tool in a nonviolent community is the vote. And so we know that early voting is coming up. Folks can request their vote by mail ballot. We're encouraging them to do that and get it back in, but also go out and vote early. one of my city commissioners here in Tallahassee said, don't be a November 3rd voter, be an October voter. And so we're encouraging everyone to get a plan to go and vote by mail or voting early, but be an October voter. So on November 3rd, you can sit back, watch the returns, and watch the country move in the right direction. But we need everyone to get out and vote and go to iwillvote.com.
All right, then. Alan Williams with the Biden campaign. We surely appreciate it, brother. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And Steve, you can tell I tolerate captions.
Lewis, you say hello.
And by the way, Alan, the Florida Alphas sent me this shirt right here. Take the fight to the polls. The bottom says vote. So I don't know what y'all Kappa's doing, but I know what the brothers in Fort Lauderdale are doing.
Hey, the Noop's all about achievement, Roland, but we're all in this together. Whether you're Alpha, whether you're Kappa, Q, Sigma, Iota.
All right.
Black men, we need you to stand up.
Well, I want to see the Kappa shirts out there saying vote. I ain't going to wear it, but I want to see it. All right, Alan, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yo, Noops.
All right, folks, bringing my panel, Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for the Environmental Justice EPA, Lauren Victoria Burke, NNPA, writer Joseph Pinion, Republican strategist and political commentator. In a second, I'm going to be talking with Reverend Dr. William J. Barber about voter suppression. I'll start with you, Mustafa. Again, the point I'm making is this here. When you're trying to leave no doubt, that means you go after every single vote. And again, I've been yelling from the top of the roof since 2016 when those numbers look. There's something out there. There are black men who say, look, I can't trust either side. And so I don't believe that they're out there for me. When you look at younger black men, it's there as well. That's why I keep saying you have to have the candidates speak directly to that demographic and not dance around it. Don't use people of color. Don't talk about black men as a way, black women as a way to get to black men. No, you gotta speak to that group directly.
Without a doubt. I mean, so many folks always forget the streets. They make some assumptions. You know, I appreciate what Brother Williams was saying, but the reality of the deal is that if you don't have those gatekeepers from the street, and that doesn't mean it has to be Uncle Luke, and I appreciate Uncle Luke over the years. You know, there are all kinds of other artists and creatives that people, you know, who are in the corners respect and will open their minds to. And then, of course, you got to be talking about jobs and justice and healthcare and housing. But definitely jobs, justice, if you're talking to black men, especially folks who maybe haven't had the same set of opportunities, who are wondering exactly how are you going to help me to be able to move forward? What are those opportunities going to be? Because we know all boats don't rise the same. Some boats got some holes in them. Some boats ain't got no oars. So you can't give that, you know, just generality speech and assume that that is going to resonate with folks who have often been unheard and unseen. You got to get straight to it. And you also got to have the folks engaged whom they respect and who they see and who they know care about their communities. And when you don't do that, you leave the gaps that you've been talking about.
Lauren, again, actually I'll go to Joseph. Joseph, you have Republicans. Again, Donald Trump is he's using the First Step Act. Look at that ad that he ran with Jack Brewer, all those brothers talking at the convention. Their whole deal is like, Harris, Biden have done nothing. Trump has done these great things. They're appealing also to the pocketbook of black men, small business owners, things along that. And there are a lot of stuff that they're not saying, such as not giving a damn about police consent decrees, don't want to take out progressive DAs. There's a whole bunch we can talk about, but this is a very specific strategy of the White House. They told me 2 years ago they believe they could get 20% of the black male vote in 2020 election.
Look, I think that we have to acknowledge the fact that we have a lot of politicians who are Democrats who have been feeding lip service and comfort food to the masses, and particularly black communities, for far too long. And at some point, it was going to be inevitable that a certain portion of the community started to turn a deaf ear to the entreaties of Democratic politicians. And I think for better and for worse, that day has finally come. And so it's very difficult, I think, for certain people, particularly younger people, to go and get them to act as if somehow the First Step Act is a figment of their imagination, to act as if somehow that if they were the recipient of one of the 7 million jobs pre-COVID, that was somehow a figment of their imagination. And so I think it's been incumbent on Democrats, and possibly to their detriment, the inability to articulate why any of those things were either A, insufficient, or why they were unable to get some of those things done previously on their watch. So I think that is what we're seeing right now, particularly with younger black men who, again, look at somebody like Kamala Harris and see somebody who had the power to do yesterday what she's promising to do tomorrow when she was the chief law enforcement official in the state of California. And many of the same reforms that people were talking about then or today, many of the reforms that somebody like Tim Scott were talking about, she had the power to try to implement or at least try to sway. And from the outside looking in, many people feel she did not deliver.
But here's the deal, Lon. This is real simple. This is, to me, where Democrats have absolutely failed. Let's just be honest. The First Step Act would not be exactly what it was if it wasn't for Democrats. Initially, all Trump wanted to do was jail reform. When that bill got passed in the House, first of all, it doesn't go through the House unless Congressman Hakeem Jeffries shepherds it through, Democrat. It doesn't do anything in the Senate unless Senator Cory Booker, Senator Kamala Harris, Dick Durbin, and yes, Republican Chuck Grassley say, no. There's got to be more teeth to this. And so Donald Trump is actually taking credit for something that Democrats said had to be in it, and it was Republicans who blocked criminal justice reform under Obama. I don't understand why Democrats don't make the argument saying, hold up, y'all taking credit, that bill ain't nothing without us demanding the changes be put in it. I haven't heard them make that case.
Yeah, I suspect they could make that case. It is an example of a piece of hard legislation that disproportionately impacts the black community. The only thing it doesn't impact numerically that many people. So I suspect the Democrats don't necessarily want to talk about it generally for that reason. I would say just globally, though, that this is sort of familiar territory, the way the Biden campaign is campaigning with regard to black men. I mean, generally what happens is there's this very general talk about healthcare and jobs and no specificity with regard to the more granular issues, mandatory minimums. I think you already brought up qualified immunity and those things that are disproportionately impacting black men specifically. Like, that's the stuff that nobody really wants to talk about. The fact that he wanted to use the phrase men of color, I think is extremely telling, as you pointed out. But this is the game, and this is a game that they can play very easily in this cycle because we have somebody in the White House who's literally dangerous. So they can argue that you have to pick Joe Biden because we got a dangerous guy, a crazy guy in the White House. That argument is correct. It's accurate. It's true. So you will not get the deeper discussion about the authorship of Joe Biden of the Clinton crime bill. You will not get the deeper discussion about exactly what it is he proposes to do about some of the issues that disproportionately impact black people, specifically black men, the school to prison pipeline issues, obviously the over-incarceration, the over-policing, the disproportionate weed arrest. I mean, does Biden want to talk about in any way legalizing marijuana? I mean, what conversation are we having about that? And we're not going to have that conversation because they can get away with what they're getting away with because of Donald Trump. So that's where it's at, and that's probably where it will remain.
Well, bottom line is this here. There are things that you can talk about, but you got to talk specific issues. And again, this whole notion of somewhere you're running away from the fact that Democrats made that bill substantive, and without House Democrats, it doesn't even get to the Senate. Maybe the whole ideal is, well, he signed it, he's taking credit for it, but that's still crazy. I don't care if 9,000 or 10,000 folks got released. You take credit when you did something. Folks, one of the issues that we're also dealing with is voter suppression, and we continue to see how Republicans are doing that. Take your pick: South Carolina, Texas, North Carolina. I can go down the line. It is real, and it's not just voter suppression. They are gearing up to challenge every single mail-in ballot because they want to steal this election. Joining us right now is Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, Repairs of the Breach. Reverend Barber, you have been fighting this issue for a very long time. It is clear what they're doing. The Supreme Court just allowed South Carolina to reinstate requiring witnesses to be present when you sign an absentee ballot. We're seeing what's happening in North Carolina, ballots being returned in Guilford County, a higher rate from African Americans than anybody else. We're seeing how they are using the power of Secretary of States, of head of boards of elections. And then you got the governor of Texas who then says, oh no, only one drop box for mail-in ballots in the entire county, in the state. That is all about voter suppression.
Every bit of it. And there's two things that's going on, Roland. Number one, when you voter suppress, when you know you cannot win straight out. So let's remember, Trump did not win in 2016. He was selected. He won by what happened in 3 states up north. And they know that 64 million poor and low wealth people were eligible to vote. 34 million didn't, 29 million did, 100 million people totally did not vote. They know that when people vote, they cannot win. So what game do they have? 2, 1, to suppress the vote, and then to make people believe in the suppression. So we've got to get out and mobilize. You cannot let any obstacle stand in your way. Number 2, they really want to get this thing bogged down in the 12th Amendment. And Roland, you and I have been having late night conversations about what that 12th Amendment means. It means that they can throw everything into a frenzy. It can actually get to where it'll be a vote in the House, and it'll be a 26, 22, 24 vote, because there's a process in the 12th Amendment that allows it to end up being a vote per state if the election is not certified by a particular time. So what we have to do is not what we're going to do after November 3rd, but what we're going to do now between November 3rd is to have a massive turnout so that if anybody's begging for the absentee ballots to be counted, it's Trump, it's McConnell. We have to have a massive turnout now. We got some stuff to fix in the law later. We got to restore Voting Rights Act and all that. But right now, we need a vote just like South Africa when they first got the vote.
Right. Leave no doubt.
Leave no doubt. That's right. Okay, I told somebody today, you get your mask, you get some sunglasses or whatever you need, you put some gloves on, you pack you a sandwich bag, you get some water, you take a folding chair, whatever you have to do it early. If you don't do it early, absentee, do it early voting, same day registration in North Carolina, but on election day, leave no doubt. This is all about an attempt to try to throw this election into the United States Senate, and then to the House of Representatives, and then to that little crazy clause that they put into place in the 12th Amendment, where it comes down to the states each having one vote, and that vote is dependent on who controls basically the congressional delegation in the United States House. We cannot go to that place. We have to leave no doubt.
And again, this is the first time in a number of years, a couple of decades at least, where the Republicans are not under a consent decree not to have voter intimidation. Donald Trump has already called for his people to go to the polls, to watch other people. They want to intimidate people at the polls.
That's right. So what we have to do, you want to come watch us, watch millions of us vote, right? Ain't nobody scared. You go vote. You don't sit back. You don't allow this to take place. This is like Harriet Tubman in that movie saying, I won't give me liberty or give me death. We're not playing. And we got to also unpack these lies. I cannot continue to tolerate, especially black people, who come on and talk like Trump has done so much for black people. It's a straight up lie. Democrats may have had their problems, but that's some stuff we need to deal with, not just with white Democrats, but we need to deal with that with the Black Congressional Caucus. If 61% of African Americans are poor and low wealth, why isn't that a major issue of the caucus? So why isn't, the health care and living wages and universal health care, not just the affordable care, but those are things we need to deal with post November. And it's on us to deal with that. Right now, you got a criminal. You have Donald Trump is not crazy. He is calculating. He's not by himself. He's determined to destroy this democracy. And what he's saying, one thing he'll do, if he promises you he's going to turn loose militias, he'll do it. He said in 2016, Roland, that he wanted to change the 14th Amendment, that he was against living wages, that he was going to tear down health care. And one thing about him, he has tried to do everything he said he's going to do. So he has a record. So if folk are going to come and intimidate you, then we cannot let them. If they want to come watch millions of us vote, watch us. But the last thing we can do is say we're not going to be there because some folk might be traveling around. In the last election, Roland, I don't know how many people know this story. In North Carolina, they were riding around when Obama was running in 2008. They were riding around with effigies, trucks riding around with nooses and effigies. What we decided to do is say, okay, you want to ride around with an effigy? We're going to march 1 million people to the polls doing early voting and same-day registration. That's what you do. You respond by not backing down.
Can you speak to what I just talked about again with repairs of the breach? That's obviously nonpartisan what you do, but y'all have hosted events, Poor People's Campaign, invited both candidates as well, and I've been saying for more than a year that these Democratic candidates need to be doing a black male town hall. I went to every single one of the candidates in 2019, said they should be doing it. I said, because you need to be talking to the people who are disaffected. And we see what the numbers are. And here we are. Yeah, it's October 6th. But I don't care whether it's Zoom, whether it's StreamYard, whether we do it here. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris needs to do something specific talking to black men, because the polling data is clear. In battleground states right now, 15 to 20% of black men say they're going to vote for Donald Trump.
Yep. The expansion in this election is two places: black men and poor and low-income people. In Florida, for instance, all you need is 7% of poor and low-wealth people that didn't vote last time, 105,000 votes to overcome the margin from 2016. In all of these states, if you push black men, particularly, to the polls, it can change everything. You cannot let Trump just get away with 10 or 15% of the black vote. You cannot let Trump get away with the poor and low-income vote. We need volume now. And you're right, Roland. We have to speak specifically. I've said and continue to say to campaigns, listen, this is how you do it. Here's my policy on health care. Now, let me break down for you, if this policy is implemented, this is how many black men will have health care that don't have it. This is how many black women will have health care if we don't. This is how many white folks. You go down the line. Here's my policy on living wages. If this policy is passed, this is how many million black men will have a living wage job. This is how many black women will have a living wage job. Here's my policy on education. If this happens, this is how many black men will get college degrees. This is how many white women. This is how many poor and low-wealth people. You just go down the line. You don't leave it in generalities. You let people know specifically how they will be impacted by a policy. And you know what, Roland? If you do it that way, now some people push back on this, but listen to me. If you do it that way, you're not even just having a black agenda. What you're telling people is, I don't look at black people and just think they are only involved in one or two issues. I want you to know I look at the race issue in everything my administration is going to do. Banking policies, the Fed policies, environmental policies. And in every one of those policies, you disaggregate how it's going to affect black men, how it's going to affect black women, how it's going to affect black children, how it's going to affect Latinos in raw numbers, how it's going to affect poor white folk in the mountains. And if you speak to people like that, then they know where they stand. And then they're not just voting for a person, they are voting for themselves.
And that's why,
and
that's why, again, when we ran the ad, I don't want to hear this just general stuff. Oh, my mama felt great when she got named vice president. I get that, okay? Totally get that. I don't care. Look. I said it when Ta-Nehisi Coates did this big old piece, on the Obama presidency, and damn near everything I think there was like one line dealing with policy, and the whole piece was all about how he makes us feel. I'm like, damn, how you make me feel. I need to know, how did your policies impact me? And it's not that hard to sit here and just what you say, go through the whole deal. My criminal justice reform plan will impact black men this way. My health care plan will impact black men this way. My business plan, my housing plan. That's all you got to do.
That's it. And as a preacher, you just do Jesus. I mean, Jesus, that's what Jesus did. He said, I care about this group, this group, this group, this group. This is what's going to happen. But do Martin King, this group, this group. All of our movement. Do Harriet Tubman. Do Frederick Douglass. Do William Lloyd Garrison, who was a white man. They didn't just talk about race in generalities or economics in generalities. They had a specific plan, specific wants. And let me challenge the members of the Black Caucus, the members that are close to the campaign. You ought to be saying that. That's what you should be saying. It's not about feel good. For instance, I love Senator Kamala Harris. I thank God for her, prayed for her. When I hear people say, well, we will feel good. No, the question is, when she becomes vice president, how will those 7 to 8 million poor and low-income women, of which a large majority of are black, will benefit in policy? When that happens, then you get the sister in the suite connected to the sisters in the street. That's a whole different political game. And that's what we have to talk about. Public policy and politics is not about feelings. It's about facts. It's about figures. It's about policy. It's about changing people's lives.
Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. God bless now.
Thank you, sir. I want to go back to my panel here. I mean, this is, Joseph, at the end of the day, this notion of getting away from feeling. First of all, we know how people vote emotionally, whatever, but I am able to counter. Like, for instance, there's this video that Trump people have been sending around. Trump retweeted his brother, it's a 9-minute video, and he's talking about how his whole life has changed since Trump has been president. I watched the whole video. He literally said nothing. I mean, it was just nothing. But it was just like, oh yeah, I just feel differently. I'm sitting there going, based on what? But again, you got to meet, if folk out there are unsure about you, the only way to counter this is to say, this is what I'm gonna do. Here, 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 here. What he gonna do? Compare the two.
Right. Now, I mean, I think, look, the best way I can describe it, people ask me all the time, hey, Joe, why are you still a Republican? And I say, quite honestly, I think you guys think that this is some type of the wrong kind of party. Now, I'm not here for the open bar. I'm here to leverage power for myself, for my family, and for my community. And I think the issue becomes that we as black people have been disempowered for so long, we no longer know how to wield it or leverage it. And so I think the issue becomes when you come down to these elections where, you go back to, 1988, Jesse Jackson talking about Reagan won by the margin of despair. Well, the reality is that when it comes to black people, we are always living and dying on the margins of despair. And I think that the people become so desperate because they listen to people talk about what they will do for our community, but at the same time, understanding that those people have never actually leveraged their own political capital when it was inconvenient for them to do things on behalf of black people. And I think that for better and for worse, that's one of the criticisms that people had with the Obama administration, that for 8 years they had a person that they knew personally cared deeply about black people, but didn't necessarily leverage political power to do things specifically on behalf of an African-American agenda. And similarly, now the concern becomes, as you have this 5%, 10%, 13%, close to maybe 20% of black males looking desperately for some sign of opportunity and hope, they will look to any sign of something that is different than what has come before. Because at the end of the day, what people are truly looking for is a chance and a crack, a chance to have a choice. And ultimately, even if the choices are inconvenient, black people having to choose between either having your children be safe on the stoop or having your children being shot after a police stop gone wrong, these are unamiable decisions, but ultimately the only decisions that we ever face because of the fact that we've been disempowered and disenfranchised year after year, generation after generation.
But Lauren, this goes beyond just black men. When you look at, there's very soft numbers when it comes to young voters, specifically young black voters. And so that's why, again, they have to make a very clear and precise argument speaking to, this is what I am going to do, and hold me accountable when I win.
Well, yeah, I think obviously one of the biggest issues for young voters is just the state of the economy in terms of obviously the cost of college, cost of higher education is a huge one. You don't really see Joe Biden talking very specifically on anything because he has to spend so much time really in the in the sort of world of talking about Donald Trump, which is understandable because we were at a crisis point in this country with regard to COVID and unemployment as a result of the COVID crisis. So I get what Joe Biden has to sort of negotiate there, but it really gets him away from talking specifically to any constituency, whether it be young voters or black voters or anybody else. And quite frankly, the other fact of the matter is it works because the Republican Party has been dysfunctional now for quite some time and really been non-responsive to African American voters. The Democratic Party knows it doesn't have to do too much to get black votes, and so they don't do too much to get black votes, and they get them anyway. And so they can stay in the land of, how Kamala Harris makes you feel in the historic moment and all this other stuff, and not have to talk about things like mandatory minimums and civil asset forfeiture. The other part of that yin and yang, by the way,
about 20 seconds.
There is no group out there, advocacy group, that forces these politicians to talk about these things in a way that really leverages them like other bigger advocacy groups do.
Right, and that's absolutely needed. I got to go to a break. When we come back, folks, Jermaine Dupree and others, they're putting together this Zoom conversation to encourage young black folks to get involved and vote. I'm going to join them in just a second. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
So such a young person represents the United States of America and its conventional culture. That's what I've heard all my life. In the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, and today. But they better begin to recognize that you cannot overcome the forces of Trumpism by imitating Trumpism. In language, or in behavior, or in vision. You cannot do eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth with Trump and expect you're going to get rid of him. The forces of wickedness that Trump produced are now on the rise in Europe as well as in the United States. So we should not be surprised if Trump is maybe only the first president of this caliber, of this kind of meanness, of this kind of power hungriness. It could happen, and I do not see national political voices who recognize the simple fact. Trump can only be defeated by a vision and a movement that does not act like Trump, but acts like people who know that they are alive and that love and truth are the ways that we best exemplify our humanity and the gift of life.
This is Alexis Herman, 23rd United States Secretary of Labor. You have one vote. Use it. And you have to use it for the future of our country.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we're going to do something right now. We're going to join the folks up with Vote Nick. Vote Nick initiative. They're designed to promote voter turnout and propel larger digital conversation about the voting process. Hey, folks, what's up?
Yes, that was a great intro.
Welcome, Roland. Welcome. Welcome.
What an entrance, Roland. What an entrance.
You're on mute now. You're on mute. You just muted yourself.
Roland, that was good. So listen, we can get this conversation started.
Okay, now we're on. Okay, so here's the deal, folks. Y'all know we're actually live on my show and your Zoom at the same time.
Okay.
That's how we roll.
I was going to say, that's how you roll. Come on with it. Okay.
Yes, so I'm not going to hold it. Listen, I want to say thank you for everybody. Let's get this conversation started. Armitha, if you don't have anything to say, we can jump it back over to the mayor and we can get the conversation rolling.
You know how Roland came in with that intro? I don't have anything to say, but just shout out to Impossible Foods. We're so blessed to be here and all of your presence. So we're going to just get it going. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
There it is. Let's jump right in, everybody. Listen, we have two special guests tonight. One of my favorite producers in the world, Lil Jon, and my fraternity brother, Alpha Phi Alpha Roland Martin, with us tonight. Gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. We're at such a pivotal moment in history this fall. What would you say to others? What would you say to others to get them to go vote or encourage others to vote?
Lil Jon, you first.
I was gonna say you go first.
No, you first.
Really, you have no excuse at all right now. One thing I've noticed over the last couple of weeks is that Anytime you turn on your Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it's some way you can click on something and go right to the site you need to go to, no matter what state you're in, and to find out your status and or to get registered. So people back, years ago, it was way harder to get registered, or it wasn't that hard, but it wasn't as easy as it is now. So really, you have no excuse. And everybody out there, you have to understand, people died for us to have this right. People died. People got beat up. People got put in the hospital for us to have this right. And I'm so tired of people saying, well, I don't like I don't like the way this person is doing this and doing that. Well, get your ass out and vote. That's how you change it. And don't be mad just because someone's in there that you don't like. You have to get those people out, and then the people that have your best interests at heart, then you vote them into the office. So don't complain if you're not getting your ass out to vote. And now your turn, Roland.
All I can say is, yeah. So let me put it in this perspective. That was some polling data done, and the story came out today. That is, it broke down with a Black Futures Lab, and they looked at how African Americans are. African Americans are hyped to vote against Donald Trump, but where there is weakness in these various underground states are among young voters. And there's this belief among young voters that, you know what, no party is going to be able to do anything about these issues. I've heard people during the whole protest in the wake of George Floyd's death, and people who were saying that, you know what, these folks can't make change happen, so we're going to keep protesting. Here's the problem, folks. The political leaders are the very people who can then create the kind of change you say you want to see happen by virtue of your protest.
That's right.
So the protest goes directly in hand with voting.
Exactly.
But the thing goes beyond voting. Remember, voting is the end of one process and the beginning of another. So you got Mayor Woodfin here. All right. He went out and he sat here and laid out, this is my vision for the city. There were people who said, okay, fine, we're going to take a chance on you. He gets elected. Then the very people who voted for him have to stay involved and say, now you are going to have to do what you said you were going to do, and we're going to be here to press you to do so.
That's right.
Now, for a lot of folks, that's where the problem is, because we don't necessarily want to go to City Hall. We don't want to go to county government. We don't want to go to state capitals. But the people who actually get stuff done are the folk who stay involved in the process. Now, I'm not saying that means you as an individual, but this is where you align with organizations. This is where you align with grassroots groups to begin to say, how do we then create the kind of change that we want? The greatest mistake of Black people, when Obama was elected, and this ain't in me saying it in hindsight, I wrote it after he won, is that Black people stayed at the inauguration parade looking like this. We were so happy to see a Black first family. Everybody else left. They all went to work at the inauguration parade. We were just so hyped to see a Black first family. And so the LGBT movement, they gave Obama a 54-page agenda in the first 60 days of his inauguration. Latinos, Dream Act, and others gave an agenda. It took Black organizations 5 years to meet to say, here's our Black agenda. Don't tell me I'm lying, because I was in the room. And so what I want us to understand is that what Donald Trump is doing in the Republican Party has nothing to do with you as Black people. What this is about is being in control of the courts for the next 50 years. I'm just going to give y'all some basic math, and then I'm going to shut up. Amy Coney Barrett, who they are trying to put on the court, is 48 years old. Neil Gorsuch is 53. Brett Kavanaugh is 55. John Roberts is 65. Sam Alito is 70. Clarence Thomas is 72. That means that if they serve as long as Ruth Bader Ginsburg did, who died at 87, that means that Amy Coney Barrett will be on the Supreme Court for the next 39 years. That means that Neil Gorsuch will be on the Supreme Court for the next 34 years. That means Brett Kavanaugh will be on the Supreme Court for the next 32 years. That means John Roberts will be on the Supreme Court for the next 22 years. That means Samuel Alito will be on the Supreme Court for the next 17 years. And then finally, the last candidate, Clarence Thomas, will be there for the next 15 years. So what does that mean? They will completely be the final arbiter of all laws, civil rights, voting rights, abortion rights, environmental rights, all laws for a bare minimum next 15 years. They will have 6 seats. Let's say take Clarence Thomas off, Sam Alito, the next 17 years. That means a child born now, a black kid born now, will still be governed by a conservative Supreme Court when they turn 18. That's why you got to vote.
Man, you just dropped some knowledge there. Everybody give him a hand. Everybody give him a hand.
Yeah.
Everybody give him a hand. That's knowledge. That's knowledge right there. That's knowledge. Thank you. Thank you, Roland. Thank you. That was deep because this is that serious. This is like Roland had said, it's no vote equals no voice. So we truly need to take this very serious. Thank you for sharing that. That was deep. I didn't look at it like that. And I don't think anybody has. Did you all?
And see, that's the piece, and that's the federal. And there's somebody out there watching who was saying, yeah, but I'm focused on local stuff. Florida, Amendment 4, took Desmond Meade 10 years to get it passed. What happened? Republicans in the state legislature passed a law saying, no, you got to pay all your fines and fees. They appealed to the state Supreme Court, ruled in favor of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. They then sued them in federal court. The judges on the federal court overturned the decision. It went to the full Fourth Circuit, who overturned that decision. Who appoints federal judges? President. Who approves federal judges? United States Senate. And so if Democrats pick up 4 seats in the United States Senate, they control the United States Senate, which means they control who the federal judges are. See, so even though you have a local law in Florida, a federal judge rule on that law. So for y'all folks who say it doesn't matter, you have to understand that. When the mayor took down the Confederate statue there in Birmingham, the folks there said, we're going to sue you, which will go to the Alabama Supreme Court. Who governs that? And so the courts are the final arbiter. We can elect all these black people, young people, aggressive people, take your pick. But if the courts rule against every law they pass, all of that is for naught. That's why you can't ignore the courts.
Wow.
Well, that's deep. That's deep, brother. John, brother Martin, man, listen, the knowledge, the passion you've given us, y'all, listen, if you're not motivated by now, I don't know what would motivate you. I tell you this though, we got another partner in vote. All right, not in crime. We got another partner in vote. I want to give a warm welcome to Armethea Pilstrom. You know, Miss Armethea is the national corporate manager of Impossible Foods. Armethea, you know, we see you kicking it right now. You're killing us in your polka dots. But tell us, what does this year's election mean to you and Impossible Foods?
Yes. So I'll speak first on behalf of Impossible Foods and the social good team. We are doing 2 things. We are giving 1 million meals to food insecurity that truly affects and impacts the Black and Brown community, as we all know, as well as we are putting our time, money, and where, you know, I would say our energy is really making sure people are truly getting out to vote. We didn't just post Black Lives Matter. We're doing something about it with this Vote Nick initiative, is having a seat at the table to truly making sure, like I said before, when Roland Martin had put out a video of dancing in the back of the t-shirt, it said no vote equals no voice. And that hit me. And when I went back to the team and I said, you know what, we need to partner with Slutty Beacon, the founder, Pinky Co. for Atlanta. And it was her idea to put this all together. And from that with Jermaine Dupri, and to say, what could we do? And instantly, as her being our partner, we said, put us there. And so that in itself, on behalf of Impossible Foods, we're not talking about it. We're actually doing it. And we do mean that. Speaking on behalf of Armitha Pilcher, myself, number one, as a wife, a mother of a son, of a 22-year-old son that graduated this year, it's hard. It's hard, right? And then also being a member of Delta Sigma Theta, that is what we do, right? We lift two hands to get out here and serve. So with all of that being said, I think that it's not about someone else. It's about you. What are you doing to change your households, your neighborhoods, your community? And by doing that is voting. You can't sit here and complain about it. You can't sit here and say, well, this is terrible, what's happening. What did you do to elect those people that are in office? And then going back off what LaJohn said, being able to educate yourself, what is going on? And that's what we have to do more of, is educating ourselves. And then also inspiring each other to give back and to vote, but give back and to know who you should be voting for. Because that is a big issue that a lot of people have no idea who they're voting for.
Absolutely. Well, listen, first of all, shout out to the Divine Demons of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated.
Thank you.
As well as congratulations to your son. And again, thank you to all of our special guests, Lil John, Roland Martin, man, y'all energy, your passion. Thank you for schooling us and telling us what's at stake over the next 30 days. Listen, we all have an assignment. My next assignment, and Pinky would tell me I got to hold true to this, is for us to shut up and stop talking and get into these questions. So how about I open it up for the first question? Let's talk about the issues at stake. Which issues, all right? We have switched to the questions. Which issues do you think are most pressing for the American people, and probably more importantly, Black American people? That's for any of y'all.
Well, here's the deal. Because I'm bouncing about 90 seconds to finish the rest of my show because I got guests that are waiting. So let me just say this right here. Affordable Care Act is on the agenda. Supreme Court likely is going to, if they confirm Barrett, they could very well invalidate all of the Affordable Care Act, which means that you're going to need a Democratic House and Senate, and of course the White House, to actually fix that particular law and then pass that particular bill. That's coming down. Healthcare, that's a critical issue. Second of all, we talk about voting rights. Right now, Republicans are flat out focused on voter suppression. They have not fixed the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court has picked up another case out of Arizona that could very well invalidate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The Shelby v. Holder decision in 2013 invalidated Section 4. So that's why in Alabama, you no longer have federal oversight of elections, which means that they can do whatever they want to, cut polling locations, and don't have to get approval from the federal government. So if Democrats control the White House, House, and the Senate, you can pass a strong Voter Rights Act law that doesn't sunset in every 25 years, but can simply be permanent for all time. The last point is the environment. The person who wins the White House sets policy for the EPA, Department of Commerce, for the Interior as well. And so we're seeing what's happened. I'm from Houston. Hurricanes. South Carolina, hurricanes. You're talking about what's happening with wildfires in California. You're seeing tornadoes in the Midwest part of the country. We have to confront the environment as well. All of that is on the ballot. And I can tell you, on all three of those, Donald Trump gets an F. Period. And so that has to happen, and we can't ignore the Senate last point, which means you got Tommy Tuberville running for the Senate in Alabama. All he knows is being a football coach. That fool don't even know what the Voting Rights Act is. He has no business being in the United States Senate, so Doug Jones should come back. And if you're Black and you're voting in Georgia, Raphael Warnock. If you're talking about in North Carolina, Cal Cunningham. We have to put the people in office who advocate for our issues. And Black men, y'all don't play games with this. Sisters are mobilized and organized. Brothers better understand that we should be voting as well in record numbers. And here's my final deal. You don't vote, shut the hell up.
Well,
I approve that message. I approve that message what Roland Martin said. Thank you. Thank you. I approve that.
Brother Martin, we appreciate you, man. We know you got to get back to your show.
Yes, thank you.
All love,
I appreciate it.
Yes.
We're going to turn it over to to the king of crunk. You want to answer that question, or you want me to go to the next question, brother?
Y'all, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. Thanks for joining, Roland. Thank you.
Much. All right, folks. This we'll go back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. I was talking earlier about the Supreme Court and that decision that's coming out of South Carolina, which certainly has a particular impact. You're seeing these things happen with voter suppression and how Republicans are using the courts and how they want to win this in the courts. The 8-person U.S. Supreme Court sided with South Carolina to reinstate a mandate that absentee ballots require witness signatures, even though critics argue that the coronavirus puts an undue burden on voters to safely get a witness cosign on the ballots. The order will not apply to ballots already cast or those mailed in within the next 2 days, but will apply to ballots going forward for the November 3rd general election. Justice Brett Kavanaugh explained the court's decision, saying this court has repeatedly emphasized that federal courts ordinarily should not alter state election rules in the period close to an election. By enjoining South Carolina's witness requirement shortly before the election, the district court defied that principle and the court's precedents. The order will not apply to ballots, again, already cast or those mailed within the next 2 days, but will apply to ballots going forward for the November 3rd general election. Mustafa, what you're dealing with here is what the Trump folks are doing, are trying to lay the groundwork for the courts to actually determine this election. They are already challenging in Pennsylvania. They're challenging all that big brouhaha about ballots in a ditch in Pennsylvania. That was because the Republicans actually were successful in the courts that threw those particular ballots out. We could go down the line. Donald Trump has already said he is hoping that the Supreme Court will be the final arbiter. So they want to replay 2000, create chaos in states, run the clock out. You got to certify the election by a certain date for the Electoral College. I think it's December 8th. I got to find it. They want the Supreme Court to be the deciding factor if the election is close.
Yeah, they've been moving the pieces around on the board. And so many folks, unfortunately, don't understand the power that exists inside the courts and, of course, how their vote plays into that. And it's a blessing to be able to share that information. But also, folks need to remember when we had the election with Al Gore, the whole hanging Chad thing, and we ended up having, not a Democrat as the president. You ended up having a Republican, and it went back to the courts. And they tied things up, and then we see what, how everything played out. So again, pay attention, understand the power that exists inside of your vote, and understand how the courts play such a critical role inside of our lives and everything that we do. All the justice issues, all the environmental issues, housing issues, even issues around healthcare. So you have power, but you got to get engaged and you got to understand how this game is played.
Again, Lauren, when you start looking at the games, the maneuvers that are being played, Reverend Barber talked about it. They are trying to execute a similar strategy that George W. Bush did in Florida in 2000, hoping that if the numbers are close, they're going to start picking off thousands of ballots, going through. Let's see, was it properly bubbled in? They're going to try to do the hanging Chad game this time again.
Yeah, okay. So far, what we see in the numbers is record turnout for early voting. I think Virginia's at something like 700,000 people. I think Florida's number 2 and Wisconsin's number 3 in terms of record turnout for early voting. We also see, and of course, we can't trust the polls. We know that because of what happened, obviously, in 2016. But we are seeing some states in play that, quite frankly, should not be in play for the Democratic side. I mean, South Carolina and Georgia should not be in play, and they are. So I suspect what is about to happen is some sort of very close to realignment-like set of numbers on the side of Joe Biden. And with that type of leave no doubt style look on election night, it's unclear to me how they would steal the election unless, something very strange happened. I do think we are going to get some sort of October surprise in the next 25 days, because Donald Trump is a desperate character, and when he gets desperate, anything is possible, and he's got the Russians helping him. But what we see so far would indicate this sort of massive turnout, record turnout in early voting would indicate the Democratic Party is about to sweep the Senate and win the White House.
Joseph, what we're seeing again, first of all, was quite interesting. the October surprise could be one the Republicans probably are saying, what the hell is going on? Donald Trump came out and said no economic package before the election. The head of the Federal Reserve said something needs to be done out here for these folks who have rent due, lights due, things along those lines, who have not recovered from coronavirus. He says, oh, we'll get it done after I win. If you're Republican, if you're probably one of those senators, if you're in Georgia and North Carolina and Maine, as well as Iowa, Arizona, Texas, Alabama, and I can go on, you're probably saying, dude, what the hell are you doing? Now I got to go explain to the voters why we're not helping you out 1 month before the campaign?
Look, I mean, you can make the argument that the administration would probably be up anywhere between 3 to 5 points simply by passing a second round of stimulus. You've got families that haven't received any form of income going back to, early days of June, May and June. So I think ultimately, I mean, you have a real liquidity crisis on Main Street. Individuals who literally, whose bank accounts are so overdrawn, they've been shut down, don't even really have any form of checking or liquidity or even ability to engage in financial transactions. So there's real pain and suffering. Obviously, that has a precipitously worse impact on Black and brown people. But I think all of this, kind of coalesces together, even to your earlier point about what's going to happen with this voting. I mean, I don't think we're going to even know who's won this election, arguably into January. I mean, you remember going back to...
No, and it's not going to be January because you got to remember. You got to remember the process. You have to certify election results.
But once, yeah, they're not going to be certified. But then even then, if it goes to Congress, I mean, Congress actually has to come to a decision, right? So at the end of the day,
no. Remember, if states certify their results, it then goes to the Electoral College. Those are hard, fast dates.
Yeah, right. But states have to. There's two unenviable situations that we're in right now. We're in a recount that we don't know when it's going to end, or you could be in a situation where the states say we're just going to pick the electors ourselves. Either one of those situations still then depend on the certification happening, which then also, even if we can't actually get to a definitive result in the Electoral College, then it ends up being thrown to Congress. So I think that for me personally, in the media, I think that we have to do a better job of preparing people for the fact that there is a sincere possibility that we are not going to know who the president of the United States is for an extended period of time. And to steal from that poet, Roland Martin, who says, we tried to tell you, I think there have been many Republicans who've been trying to say that this desire to live and die on universal mail-in ballots, going from 30 million people mailing in votes to 80 million people mailing in votes, was inevitably going to lead us to a constitutional crisis, if for no other reason that's just the type of hardball, blind partisanship that's being engaged in today. So I think, to your point, I mean, all of those things are true. But I think the average person is still thinking that they're going to wake up the day after Election Day or soon thereafter, and we're going to have an idea of who the president of the United States is. And I think at some point we have to start telling people that might not, in fact, be the case.
Well, first of all, look, I don't expect us to have somebody hit 270 on election night, which is why I say leave no doubt to make it happen. This breaking news came in, and I must admit, I'm not really tripping on this whole deal here. You're going to love this one, Mustafa. Stephen Miller has tested positive for COVID. Per a senior administration official, adds Miller has been working remotely for the last 5 days, testing negative every day through yesterday, and is in quarantine after a positive test today. This is from Hallie Jackson. Stephen Miller, the white supremacist working in the White House. But here's why, y'all. Here's why this is karma. Because his wife, Katie Miller, was talking trash yesterday about Kamala Harris because the Kamala Harris team wanted to have a plexiglass between her and Vice President Mike Pence. And so she said, well, if Kamala wants to build a wall between her and Pence, fine, let's do it. Now your husband, Katie, you talking trash about Kamala. Now your husband got coronavirus, which means you likely got coronavirus. This, Mustafa, it shows the sheer ignorance how the White House, that Amy Coney Barrett White House Rose Garden ceremony, where they were just hugging and kissing each other, they were sitting there passing the coronavirus around like it was a blunt. Puff, puff, pass, pass.
Like a blunt. I like that. I mean, the reality of the situation is that we need plexiglass, probably something stronger than plexiglass, between the Trump administration and the rest of America. These folks have, they live in this millionaire bubble. I used to say a billionaire bubble, but we know that Trump doesn't have $1 billion. And they're so disconnected from what everyday people are dealing with. How in the world are you going to have a conversation to stop the stimulus checks that need to come, to stop small businesses from receiving the dollars that they need to be able to move forward? You say you open up the economy and you downplay COVID-19 because you say you want to get the economy going again, but yet you do everything to damage small businesses, which were a huge part of our economy. And then you tell folks not to wear masks, so more people get sick, more people can't work. I mean, it's so nonsensical, the things that they do, but at the same time, they are dangerous because they're sending a message across the country that is one that places people's lives in jeopardy on not a daily basis, but on an hourly basis. So I don't want to see anybody get sick. I don't want to see anybody die from COVID-19, but karma sure is and y'all can fill in the blank.
Well, you talk a little trash, Lauren, and all of a sudden now it's in your house.
Yeah, well, they have been trying to, the President of the United States has been ignoring this crisis since day one. He's tried to PR his way out of it since day one. They've never had any comprehensive strategy for it. Now we have over 210,000 people dead. Now he's, of course, pulling the stimulus. I think Pelosi might have something when she says he's so amped up on steroids that may be affecting his judgment. But then again, his judgment wasn't very good to begin with. So how do we know it's affecting his judgment? They're a disaster. And the fact that they're going out like this in late October, right when the campaign, when really you should be so concentrated on the campaign, your strategy for the campaign should be taking hold. The fact that they're crashing and burning because of their own stupid, irresponsible, dangerous decision-making is very fitting. It's extremely fitting. It's also just dangerous for our national security. We had a COVID outbreak, obviously, Pentagon today, because they're just stupid. They're stupid people. They don't know what they're doing. And quite frankly, we can't get them out of here fast enough.
I don't want nobody to be sick, nobody to die from coronavirus. But Joseph, when that black preacher in Virginia ignored all the rules and kept having church, I call him stuck on stupid. I'm telling you right now, Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Kayleigh McEnany, Chris Christie, Senator Mike Lee, Senator Ron Johnson, all them dumbasses who were at the White House hugging, kissing, sitting next to each other, not wearing masks, acting like this was no big deal. Now they sitting here dealing with it. Rudy Giuliani on TV coughing, said, I got my test earlier, we'll see. This is what happens when you're stupid. This is what happens when you ignore the doctors and ignore the scientists, and then last night Trump up there, showing he the big man, up there wheezing just to get his little dictator video. They are stupid. Put a damn mask on. Social distance. But you can't tell arrogant ass folks nothing, Joseph.
Look, I will say this. If we're in a serious boxing match, then people should protect themselves at all times. And if you don't protect yourself at all times, then obviously you might get caught with a roundhouse to the face. So I think at some point, there has to be a level of personal responsibility. People have to assume the responsibility. You had former Vice President Joe Biden talking about states and governors, and people have to assume responsibility. Ultimately, also people have to assume responsibility. And if their choice is to not wear a mask, then they have to accept the consequences that go along with it. And I think as a society, I think I said a little earlier, the issue that we have in America is that America is founded on individual freedoms and liberties. And that makes it very difficult in this environment from some people to understand that it's incumbent on us to consider the needs of our neighbors. And that's not just about COVID-19, that's also about talking about justice and for black and brown people all across this great land. This inability to understand the true nature of the problems facing the person next to you and to be willing to compromise in anything that we do on behalf of that next person because we're all part of this shared fabric. That is, to me, the root cause of all of this, bigger than the partisan divide that we face today. And I think that if we can start to examine things through that particular prism, it might be easier for us to understand how we got here.
It's real simple. If you work for that fool and you stupid enough not to wear a mask, your ass deserve everything you get. And if he tell you take it off, nah, damn that, Joseph. Look, Joseph, if my wife was like, damn that, I'm going to sorority meetings, I'm doing this here, her ass would be quarantining. I'm telling you right now, this fool telling reporters, take that thing off. How many White House reporters have gotten coronavirus? Kayleigh McEnany, her little silly ass, addressing reporters with no mask on. Well, I've had negative tests the last 3 days. 4th day, she get it. Man, put a mask on. But no, they won't even do that because they're arrogant. They're arrogant. And if you are arrogant enough not to put a mask on working in closed quarters and you get it, yo, that's on you. You can't say it's on anybody else. That's on you. And if you work for an idiot like Trump who tells you take it off, his valet got it. His body man got it. You got White House staff. I've been to the White House. It's old black people who work in the White House. It's black people who are dying from coronavirus. This man could very well infect White House staff, mostly black people, because his arrogant ass won't actually follow the CDC guidelines. Got to go to a break. We come back. I got to talk about polling data, partnership with a Black Voter Lab. Really looking at, again, where black voters are, what they care about. Alicia Garza's up next. Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, we support black-owned businesses here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. The folks at Ceek.com, they, of course, have a couple of things. Their virtual reality headset right here, folks. You just drop your cell phone right in. You can look at their content on Ceek.com or look at 360-degree video right here through this headset. It's an actually, it's pretty fabulous to actually be in the room, in the place with that virtual reality video. They also have these great 360-degree 4D headphones. Gamers love them. You can listen to music, watch videos, great surround sound. All of that's great. These two devices here you can get from Ceek.com, CEEK.com. Use the promo code RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. And we certainly thank Mary Spiel, the founder of the company, and folks at Ceek.com for being supporters of Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right, folks, we've been talking the election, 27 days left before Election Day, but we're already in Election Day with early voting starting all across the country, with people dropping mail-in balloting all across the country. And folks, there's a new poll from the political advocacy group Black Futures Lab, which shows that black folks say they're not deterred from showing up to the polls in spite of all the efforts by Republicans to turn them away. 81% of respondents say they plan on voting in the general election. We're joined by with the details with Alicia Garza, principal with the Black Futures Lab, and Terrence Woodbury, an analyst for. First of all, we had you used to be with Brilliant Corners, but you're now with Terrence, name of the group?
Yeah, CEO at Hitch Strategies. Bro.
Yeah, absolutely. So they had the old title there in the script there. Let me first start with you, Terrence. You conducted this poll. Give people just the basic overview of what it says.
So this is, fascinating research, and what I appreciate, I want to thank Alicia Garza and Black Future Labs, because far too often in polling, Black folks get reduced down to a single crosstab, or even less than that. We even get reduced down to people of color in a crosstab, and so this robust research allowed us to really open up the Black community and to look at some key audiences and demographics, and to identify some potential problems going into this election cycle. And the truth is, we got some problems going into the final stretch here. Joe Biden is significantly underperforming Hillary Clinton's losing margins amongst Black voters. And we do see that concentrated amongst Black men, and particularly young Black men under the age of 49, where Donald Trump is receiving 18% of the vote. We also identified some other problems here with that seem to indicate that Black voters are being bombarded with misinformation and disinformation, and it's beginning to impact not only how they feel about Joe Biden, but how they feel about Kamala Harris. And so, I'm looking forward to unpacking this some more, and finally breaking out some crosstabs of Black folks that realize that we are not a monolith.
Alicia, that particular point, disinformation, and we've had Shireen Mitchell on this show talking about that. People are getting stuff from, they're getting it from Facebook. And the thing is, I've said to the Biden people, the Harris people, look, you got to counter disinformation. You can't just let it sit out there and just, and where there's no response to it whatsoever. We got some audio issues with you. Make sure your microphone is up. Guys, can we pull up her audio, please?
Can you hear me okay?
Now we got you. Go ahead.
All right, cool. Well, I was just saying, Roland, you and I have been talking about this for at least a year. And we came on to the show a year ago and talked about our Black Census Project. And we've been hearing for a long time that not only are Black men being left out and left behind, especially when it comes to political campaigns. But we've also been talking for a ton of time now about the ways in which Black communities are being targeted with disinformation and misinformation. And frankly, as somebody who's a co-founder of the Black Lives Matter Global Network, nobody knows more about misinformation or disinformation than I do. I mean, in this moment, Roland, Black voters are being assaulted by the kind of misinformation and disinformation that is trying to keep people away from the polls. And in this particular political moment, Roland, what we're finding is that lies are spreading much faster than the truth. But here's the other thing that I know, and we're so proud to partner with HIT Strategies on this groundbreaking poll, because 30 days out from the election, it's time for us to stop saying Black voters are not a monolith. We've been saying this for a long time now. It's actually time for these campaigns to be taking action. And so what this poll has done is really laid out in very clear terms what it means to target Black voters in such a way that is addressing the concerns that we have. And it's also being very, very clear that if these two candidates, Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris, if their campaign is not taking this seriously, it's sure to have an impact at the polls, and it's sure to make sure that the impact of this election season is not what most of us would want it to be.
Terrence, when you talked about going inside of those numbers, even though we have less than a month, 27 days to Election Day, what should candidates be looking at doing with these numbers? Is it too late to appeal to these voters? What should they be doing? What kind of messaging? Where should they be trying to reach them?
It's not too late, and a lot of Black voters are still undecided. I've been saying since January that Black men are the real swing voters in this election, and can frankly determine the outcome in a lot of the battlegrounds that we've all been paying close attention to. But when you look at this data, it is quite clear that for Black voters across demographics, for younger Black voters and under Black voters, for Black men and for Black women, rural and urban, the issues are clear. The top issues for Black voters are COVID-19, racism, and the economy. The order of those three issues may alternate depending on what group of Black voters you look at, but those three issues are consistent. And until we lean into racism, I mean, we cannot, and this goes for the entire Democratic Party. This is not just a Joe Biden problem. This is a Democratic problem that we all have to confront. And I want to acknowledge what Joe Biden said in his Gettysburg speech today, when he really leaned into the moral imperative of the nation solving the original sin of racism. But Democrats have to realize that we cannot respond to racism with economic policies and more affordable health care. There is an anxiety amongst Black voters, specifically amongst younger Black voters, younger Black men who are closest to this pain, who are the reason many of us have gone out into the streets and protests. That anxiety we have to lean into. We have to present an alternative view of a view of America that leans into racism. But also, Roland, we really do have to do a better job of defining Senator Kamala Harris here. She has been taking the brunt of this misinformation and disinformation, and frankly, she's being used to discredit him. And we asked the question: Does Joe Biden picking Kamala Harris as his VP make you more or less likely to support him? And overwhelmingly amongst Black voters, 70 to 80% of Black voters are more likely to support Joe Biden because he chose Kamala Harris. But 14% of younger Black voters are less likely to support Joe Biden because he chose Kamala Harris. And had you told me that 3 months ago, that there would be Black voters that wouldn't support him if he chose her, I would thought it was unbelievable. But when I asked in focus groups recently in Florida, a young Black man, 25-year-old Black man in Florida said to me, I know what Joe Biden's priorities are as president because he chose a top cop as his vice president. He just wants to lock up more Black people. I don't know about you, Roland, but I've never heard a young Black man use the word top cop. That is, he is repeating verbatim what he is hearing in misinformation and disinformation, and we have got to combat that, and we have to do a better job of raising her profile, of telling her story, and using her to anchor this candidacy.
But Alicia, I'll be perfectly honest. That was a fault of Senator Kamala Harris. Her campaign did not realize what her greatest Achilles heel was, and then they started emphasizing the top cop language as well in this whole idea of appealing, let's just be clear, to white voters who are all about law and order. And so there's a difference between saying I'm the top cop when you're not a cop. You're not. They should have been framing themselves in the same vein as the Marilyn Mosbys, the Stephanie Moraleses, the Aramis Ayalas before Marilyn Mosby, Stephanie Morales, and Aramis Ayala even came on board. And so that's also on them.
You know, I couldn't agree with you more, Roland. And honestly, this election cycle has aged me about 15 years because we actually did. We begged so many of these campaigns to stop using this kind of language, but also not to let other people shape your story for you. As somebody who's born and raised here in California, somebody who was of age when Kamala Harris was district attorney here in San Francisco, I can tell you her record is actually much more complicated than the misinformation campaigns would have you think. But at the end of the day, it was not a great decision from her earlier presidential run to not tell her story on her own terms. And at the end of the day, Roland, I have to just say, this is a function of who's running these campaigns in the first place. Yep. And the facts of the matter is, it's not folks who are deeply connected to our communities. They are using formulas that weaponize race, that triangulate around race in order to appeal to white suburban voters, particularly white women. We have found time and time again that when campaigns don't pay particular attention and do deep investment in Black communities, that we have the kind of scenario that we're seeing now and that Terrence is describing. It's not too late, though. We have 29 days to set the record straight and to make sure that we're getting our stories out on our own terms. The question is, are we going to be able to sidestep some of the white men who are running these campaigns and let them know that we actually know what's going on in our communities much more than they do? And what's at stake, frankly, is whether or not our communities turn out to vote. We're not unclear about who to vote for. It's about being unclear as to whether or not our vote will even matter. And that's the challenge we have to address.
I'm going to bring my panel here with questions. Joseph, your question first for Alicia and Terrence.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, thank you guys so much for joining us. And I think obviously this election cycle is giving us all gray hairs. But looking a little bit further into the future, I'll start with you, Terrence. Maybe what are the things that you think we can be doing as a people when you start talking about a movement of black voters to demand that we have both parties being accountable to the promises they make and responsive to the needs of our community? I think obviously right now we would agree we have a Democratic Party that is responsive to the needs of black people, but not necessarily accountable for the promises they make. And the Republican Party that in many ways is kind of content to be neither responsive or accountable simply for the fact that in many ways they've been able to win elections by being neither. So what are the things that you think, and digging through the data that you've been compiling, not just here, but also in the past, about as we move towards a new American majority, what are the things that we can do to start accelerating progress so that both parties are actually actively contesting for our votes on equal footing?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I want to give you a quote from a black man in Pennsylvania. Just last Thursday, I hosted these focus groups. Actually, these are actually previous focus groups. But a black man said to me that my hood did not get better under Obama, and it didn't get worse under Trump. So tell me what these presidents got to do with me. And that's the real challenge that we have. This is not just a Democratic problem. There's a systemic problem here where black men, to Alicia's point, black men are deciding whether or not they continue to engage politically, whether or not they actually benefit. I asked, when is the last time voting made your life better? And the silence was deafening. It was deafening. It has never made their lives better. And so this is a moral imperative, I believe, for us to really empower communities. We have to stop this transactional approach to politics. That is, if you vote, then all of your problems are solved, and really engage black voters and young voters in civic responsibility and what we must do to bring about the change that we want, and to demand from politics, from politicians, and from the political system the changes that we would like to see. And frankly, I mean, there's a justifiable cynicism, a justifiable lack of trust, and so we can't continue to lead with policy promises and policy prescriptions, and if you vote for me, then I will give you all of these things. They don't believe us anymore. We have to start engaging with answering the question, what have you done for me lately? And this is what I advise all of my candidates. You have to lead with your record, lead with what you've been doing. And that way that there's a proof of concept here. You begin to show that people are actually working and fighting on your behalf to improve the issues that you say are important, and then we can begin to lean into policy prescriptions. But we really do have to show the efficacy of politics. Does it actually have an impact on their lives? We know the answer to this, but how well are we communicating that answer?
Lauren, next question.
How you doing, Alicia and Terrence? I wanted to get your comments on the part of politics that involves the money. I think so often what happens in this game is that the Democratic Party specifically only pays attention to who gives them money. One of the reasons why we see certain demographics in charge of these campaigns are those are demographics that give them money. Particularly, I was thinking, and I'm not making a commentary on the work of these groups, but I do think about what you were saying about white women, and I think about NARAL and Planned Parenthood and Emily's List, and I think Planned Parenthood's work is great, but I think the reason they get attention that black voters don't get is because they have the money piece. We have the voting piece, but we have a voting piece that they don't have, but they have the money piece, and I wanted to just hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I can jump in here. I mean, I think that that's a fair assumption. I mean, we know actually now that Planned Parenthood is being led by our sister, Alexis McGill Johnson, who's only the second Black woman ever to head that organization. But bigger than this, I think you're absolutely right that money inside of politics is really what helps to lead towards these skewed and faulty types of strategies that don't actually deliver the votes. So while they may be following these Democratic donors, those donors aren't actually delivering the kinds of votes that they need for Democrats to win. What we know about demographics in this country is that communities of color, particularly Latinx communities, are becoming the demographic majority in this nation. And demographics is not destiny, but what is destiny is that our communities, if organized, right, and if invested in, could turn out to be the largest voting blocks in these election cycles. But it's a lack of vision, frankly, that allows for these kind of top donors to be leading the strategies rather than people rooted in communities that have everything to gain from turning out and everything to lose from democracy withering away. And so we have seen this happen on their watch. And frankly, if this election season isn't enough to do an about face, I'm not really sure what else can be enough.
Terrence, real quick, you got an answer?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, frankly, Democrats are going to have to become more loyal and responsive to their most loyal voters. Black women are not only the most likely voters in America, they're the most loyal voters in the Democratic Party. And I want to push back on the money idea as well. I mean, I spoke to the Boulay archons last week and gave them a political briefing on what the state of the election was. And when they asked me what they can do to improve these numbers, I told them directly, hold your money, earmark it. When you give money to the Democratic Party, you tell them, I want this to go towards raising the profile of Kamala Harris. I want this to go towards empowering and mobilizing Black men. There's plenty of Black money in this party. We have to start weaponizing our money until our agenda and our communities are being advanced.
Mustafa, final question.
Yeah, this is either for Terrence or Alicia. You know, we got 27 days left. We're honoring Fannie Lou Hamer when she once said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I just had conversations with Black folks in Appalachia. And yes, there are some Black folks there. What do we do in the next 27 days to reach those folks who have been unseen and unheard?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start off by saying what we do in the next 27 days to make sure that our folks who have been left out and left behind are at the center of this election season is we've got to turn them out. We've got to make sure that folks like LaTosha Brown from Black Voters Matter, that the folks from the Movement for Black Lives, the folks from the Black to the Future Action Fund, and all of these other entities that are going into our communities and motivating and mobilizing voters and have been for the last year, have the resources that they need so that we can close the gap between the outreach and the investment that the party's been doing and the outreach and investment that's needed to get everybody involved. The second thing I think we need to make sure we're doing is really making sure that these campaigns understand what's at stake. 27 days is not a long time, but it's also not no time. And so there is an opportunity to change course. And actually, this week is a wonderful opportunity to speak to not only the strongest base of the Democratic Party, but also speak to the issues that most Americans care about. And frankly, we missed a huge opportunity last week in the debates to really get into a discussion about race and how it impacts every single system and structure in our society. And this isn't a new opportunity to push back against this BS law and order agenda for some, right, but not for the president and his cronies, but also to offer a pathway forward. And frankly, we shouldn't be telling any lies on that stage. We should be telling people things are hard, but without your participation, things will never get better. Everything you leave on the table, somebody else will eat. That's how we got Donald Trump in the first place.
Folks, where can people actually see more of these survey results, polling results?
Well, you can check out our website at blackfutureslab.org. You can hit strategies to get some more information about this polling data. We'll also be doing more events, so follow us to figure out where we'll be. I know Terrence and the crew at Hit Strategies has also been working directly in states with some of our partners like New Florida Majority to really look at, how does this data apply to messaging? And so we want to keep you all in the loop. So if you want to follow us, check us out at blackfutureslab.org.
Alicia Garza, Terrence Wilberry, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roland.
Folks, a Virginia state judge rejected an attempt by the Portsmouth Police Department to have the city's elected prosecutor removed from felony cases the police have brought against State Senator Luis Lucas, local NAACP leaders, and a number of the city's public defenders in connection with what police say was a criminal conspiracy to destroy the city's Confederate monument. The decision by Judge Claire Cardwell would allow Commonwealth's attorney Stephanie Morales to handle the cases as she was generally elected to do. The report said that police tried to subpoena Morales even though she wasn't on the scene of the destruction of the monuments back in June. People are nuts. A Texas police officer was charged with murder after a 31-year-old black man was stunned by a taser and then shot to death. In the statement detailing the shooting that killed Jonathan Price, Wolf City officer Sean Lucas was responding to a call about a possible fight. Lucas attempted to detain Price. Now, Price was the one who was trying to break the fight up. But Price resisted in a non-threatening posture and began to walk away. Lucas used his taser on Price, then shot him. He was taken to a hospital where he later died. Friends and family of Jonathan Price said he was trying to stop a domestic dispute before he was shot. They say the argument was settled before officers even arrived. Lucas was arrested and his bail set at $1 million. Real quick with our panel here, folks, I think about the case that was in Illinois, where it was a brother who was a bouncer at a club, and then they came on a scene and the body camera footage showed it where the cops were saying, hey, he's one of us, but another cop still shot and killed the brother. And the Cook County DA, Kim Foxx's office, determined they could not file charges against the officers involved. We've seen the other cases as well where, hell, if you black, man, don't even get involved in stuff because if the cops come, you might be the one who dies.
Yeah, we've seen this happen several times. And frankly, the speed with which they arrested this officer, which I think was 2 days, is pretty unprecedented. And the statement that they put out subsequent to that is pretty unprecedented. So it looks as if he's going to be prosecuted.
Mustafa?
Yeah, I'm just saying, we've got to be really careful because they are trying to disconnect us from our communities. When black men can't intervene to help to de-escalate a situation or to stop a domestic violence situation, then that creates these further divisions inside of our communities. So people need to be able to know that it's safe for them to actually do the right thing, because when folks can't do the right thing, then of course we get into a very chaotic situation.
Yeah, look, I think the exhaustion that washes over you dealing with these stories, and yet at the same time understanding that we have to talk about it because it's just happening too often. And I'll just say at some point, we just have to toss conventional wisdom out the window and say that, basically if Beverly Hills can have their own police department and Brentwood can have their own police department, and those police departments can be beholden to the stakeholders in those communities, then there's no reason why we cannot demand that we take a similar approach to a less centralized, more decentralized level of policing in our communities, because obviously what we currently have in place simply is not working.
Well, that is certainly the case. It is not working, and is unfortunate that we continue to see these cases. And so, man, that is just beyond sad there. All right, folks, as Mustafa mentioned, a Fannie Lou Hamer marker honoring the 1965 Voting Rights Act and spearheaded by Mississippi Valley State University students was unveiled today. The location of the marker is significant. It is the historic spot where Fannie Lou Hamer and other members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee stood in protest of voter suppression in the state of Mississippi and throughout the American South. A ceremony took place in front of the Sunflower County Courthouse. Today is also the day that Fannie Lou Hamer was born in 1917. She was born on a cotton plantation in Sunflower County. She was one of the thousands of Mississippians who took one of the boldest moves in U.S. history to fight for real democracy in national elections. Folks, Rochester, New York Mayor Lovely Warren has been indicted on 2 felony campaign finance charges. The first charge is for first-degree scheme to defraud, and the second is an election law offense for illegally coordinating activities and expenditures. The grand jury indictment is connected to Warren's 2017 mayoral re-election campaign. If she is convicted of the felony charges, Warren will be removed from office under state law. The maximum sentence would be for 16 months to 4 years in prison. It is unlikely that Warren would be incarcerated. However, her pension could be forfeited and she could lose her law license. But check this out. The judge in the case, when she appeared before him, he did tell her, if found guilty, you are going to be sent to prison. So we certainly will see what happens on that. And folks, this story here, Connecticut sports anchor who's white was fired after calling South Carolina Senator Tim Scott and Uncle Tom. Fred Gertini tweeted, "Thanks, Uncle Tom," in response to Scott saying Trump likely misspoke when he told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. News 12 said in the statement that Gertini was fired due to its zero tolerance policy for racism. Gertini, who has since deleted his Twitter account, issued an apology via Twitter. I'm just saying, not always a smart move. To some folk, don't always just tweet what you think. Type it, then hit delete. That's what you may want to do. Let me thank my panel for being with us. Mustafa, Lauren, Joseph. Great conversation. I certainly appreciate y'all. Thank you so very much for joining us today. All right, folks, time for our business segment. Keziah Yisrael is the owner and founder of Yisrael Jewels. She creates jewelry as a sacred adornment from metals such as copper, brass, and silver infused with raw crystals and Swarovski crystals. Her jewelry consists of anklets, bracelets, eyewear, lock jewels, and more. Most of her work stems from her cultural awareness practices, growing up Hebrew in her imagination. She has a history of jewelry making since she was 14. She joins us right now. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. So, how long you been doing this? Go ahead.
I've been doing it for over 12 years. I started with my first Hanukkah gift, and then it began again in high school, and then I wanted to take it serious. So I went to college and got my degree in it, and I'm still pursuing it and still continue making jewelry to this day.
Wow. And how has it grown over the last 12 years?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
How has it grown over the last 12 years?
How has it grown? Well, I've been incorporating more items such as crystals, which I've learned about the healing properties of it. I'm still learning how to grow, but I've been finding more of my tribe and finding more people who find it to be serious to wear jewelry and the importance of it and the legacy of the metals that we've been using since our ancestors. So it's been growing with my knowledge of why it's important to use copper and brass and metals such as silver. So I've been using that more, and even just the crystals. Crystals are like numbers, so there's so many things to learn about it with the energy that it possesses. So that's one of the main things that it's grown with how I've been making it.
All right, so I take it you're also wearing your work. And so just walk us through, what are you wearing? I mean, you've got an adornment on the forehead, you got the earrings, you got two around your neck. So explain what you're wearing.
So I have on this amber copper headpiece, and I have on the chain copper with an opalite, and I have my copper chain that I've made all from scratch, so piece by piece. And copper is really important to me because it's been used since the Tingla Empire. It's been used with our ancestors. It's a conductor of electricity, and we also are the same thing. We are copper beings, so I like to emulate what we are through my jewelry. And with the amber stone and my opalite, I do love crystals. I do use Swarovski crystals as well, too, which I am wearing on my arm. But copper also has a lot of healing properties as well. It's been used to help with circulation. It's been used to help with things like rheumatoid arthritis. It helps with just bodily pain. So like copper is my favorite metal. I used to love brass a lot, but copper is my number one metal that I use, and I try to explain to my customers and clients as to why it's important for us to wear this and the properties and how it affects us.
So what is your most popular piece of jewelry, or what area that people love the most?
I would say my Swarovski Christie bangles, which I'm wearing here. These are like my most popular. My crowns are very, very popular. I would say that above everything, my custom pieces, which are like my showroom pieces, I feel like are the most popular because I like to tailor to people's individuality. And that's what my expertise is. So making custom orders is really like the grand prize of like Yisrael, me being your custom jeweler. That, and also right now, currently, my copper chains, these link chains, are also becoming extra, extra popular.
Well, that all works out there. Now, where can people tell us where can they get your jewelry?
You can find me on Instagram at Yisraya, and my website is yisrayajewels.com. You can also send me an email. I love doing custom orders, so I highly encourage that. And you can also find me on Facebook at Yisraya, and that's it.
Okay, and actually, and Jules, I'm seeing there because I'm putting it in here. The Jules there ends with a Z.
A Z.
See,
Yes.
you got to say that. You got to say that because again, also we have an audio podcast so people are listening. So it's YZRIAHJEWELZ.com. And so Anthony, take a shot. This is her website. You can actually go there, take a look at it, and then you'll see all the different categories as well right there on the website. So guys, go ahead and put the website back up, the lower third. I appreciate it. It's YZRIAHJEWELZ.com. So I'm quite sure if people are getting ready for birthdays and Christmas, and if they want some custom-made jewelry, they should check you out. All right, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for featuring me. I appreciate you and all the work you do.
You take care. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, folks. Some sad news here, and that is an actress has passed away. Armelia McQueen. She made her Broadway debut in 1978's Ain't Misbehavin'. She passed away at the age of 68. She also played the sister of Whoopi Goldberg's haunted character in the 1990s movie Ghost. She later appeared, guys, come on, please show her. Thank you. Can we show her, please? Thank you. There you go. She later appeared in multiple other shows, including Harrigan's and Heart, 5678, Danso, South Pacific, and Cabin in the Sky, along with appearances on the big and small screen in Sparkle, Quartet, Cotton Club, Radio Days, and No Holds Barred, Santa Barbara. And it's so crazy. Literally just 2 days ago, I was watching the movie Action Jackson, and she was in it. And played the hairstylist who knew all the info. And so Armelia McQueen, she passed away at the age of 68. There is no cause of death has been released, and information on survivors is not available at this time as well. And folks also want to this brother here, he was in a number of Spike Lee films. He also passed away, shot and killed in Atlanta. Spike Lee posted this a few days ago, and this is what he posted. I am so sad to announce the tragic murder of our beloved brother, Thomas Jefferson Byrd, last night in Atlanta. My guy here below, you see him as a frightening character, Errol Barnes and Clockers. He was in Chirac, Sweet Blood of Jesus, Red Hook Summer, Bamboozle. He Got Game, Get on the Bus, Girls 6, and Clockers. Again, 70 years old, shot in the back in Atlanta on Sunday night. And again, no information from police on exactly what happened. And so certainly prayers go out to Thomas Jefferson Byrd. So many different people have been posting about him. Viola Davis, Wendell Pierce, and others talked about his impact. Spike Lee was just torn up. I sent him a text, and we were just texting back and forth. Just torn up by his particular death, and we'll certainly be following that to see what police say took place in the death of that brother. Again, an amazing actor. And even though we often talk about, of course, different folks who are African American who pass away today. Eddie Van Halen, the rock artist, dead at the age of 65. He had throat cancer, and somebody posted this. Y'all might want to remember this. How many of y'all like the song "Beat It"? That guitar riff. That's Eddie Van Halen on it. Died today at the age of 65 from throat cancer. All right, folks, that is it for us at Roland Martin Unfiltered. We want y'all to support our Bring the Funk fan club. Please, Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. You can send us a money order to New Vision Media, Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. Please support what we do because it's all about you, folks. Tomorrow, we'll talk about the vice presidential debate. Mike Pence, Kamala Harris. And we're also going to have a post-debate discussion partnering with a group of black women when it comes to the vote. Let me stand up here. A shout out to the brothers, the Fort Lauderdale Alphas. My boy Matt, they sent me this shirt here. And so you see the shirt here. Take the fight to the polls. Vote. And so we appreciate that. Folks, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Roland Martin Unfiltered. How?